Hello and welcome to this second tutorial on recording narration into Premiere Pro. In the first tutorial we went through all the setup so that now we're actually ready to do some recording. I've got my audio mixer open, it's ganged in with the source panel, effects control. Okay, so let's have a look at our audio mixer. Firstly, we've got some names at the top: Audio 1, Audio 2, Audio 3. Those relate to Audio 1, Audio 2, Audio 3 down here. So I can change that and just call it Track 1. And if I hit return on that, you'll notice that down here in my timeline it's also called Track 1. This button here, the mute button, is also exactly the same as this one, however they don't appear to be ganged. If I click it up here, you'll see it doesn't show down here, and yet it has effectively muted the track. And similarly, if I click it down here, it doesn't show as being muted up here. However, it has done that, it's muted the playback of the track. This is the solo button. If you click a solo button, it says play this track and this track alone. However, being Adobe and realizing that sometimes you need to solo more than one track, so you want to just listen to two tracks side by side, it gives you the option to actually solo more than one track at a time. So I could solo track 1 and track 3 and not listen to track 2, and this is very useful when you've got a whole load of different tracks. With just 3 tracks it's just as easy to turn the speakers on and off, but when you've got 20 or 30 tracks, or even 5 or 10 tracks, it's much quicker to solo the individual tracks you want to listen to together than it is to actually turn the speakers on and off. And this last one here is enable the track for recording. Now this will not cause the recording to happen, but it will enable the track so that it can record. So if I click enable track for recording, the track is enabled and it gives me a drop down telling me which device is selected. And as you can see, I'm using the external microphone, the same one that I'm using to record this particular tutorial. Okay, so now I have enabled the track for recording. I still can't record. You'd have thought push play, but that won't do it. You also need to hit the record button here. Click the record button, and now I am ready to record, but no recording will take place until I hit the play button. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the play button and I'm going to record a very unusual poem by Lewis Carroll. If you're not a native English speaker, I apologise, it's a nonsense poem, but let's have some fun. The Jabberwocky by Lewis Carroll. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toes did gyre and gimble in the wabe, all mimsy were the borogroves, and the moan raths outgrabe. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the claws that catch, the teeth that bite. Beware the Joop bird, and shun the frumious bandersnatch. He took his vorpal sword in hand. Long time the Manx's own foe he sought. Then rested he by the tum-tum tree, and stood a while in thought. And as in uffish thought he stood, the Jabberwock, with eyes of flame, came whiffling through the tulgey wood, and burbled as it came. 1, 2, and through the vorpal blade went snicker-snack. He left it dead, and with its head he went galumphing back. And hast thou slain the Jabberwock? Oh, come to my arms, my beamish boy! Oh, frapture's day, callooh, callay, he chortled in his joy. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toes did gyre and gimble in the wabe, all mimsy were the borogroves, and the moan raths outgrabe. Then you hit stop or spacebar, and there is your recording. Now it doesn't show up as it's being recorded, but it certainly shows up now it has been recorded. So let's zoom in and have a little bit of a look. Let's move this up and then pull it down so we can see a much bigger version of the waveform. And as you can see, it has recorded on one track because my microphone is mono, it's not a stereo microphone. Now what I could have done is I could have started with a mono track. I could have selected in my sequence that it was a mono track to start off with and go from there. But it's fine, we've got it in there and we can actually listen back to it if we want. So let's have a little listen back. The Jabberwocky by Lewis Carroll. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toes did gyre and gimble in the wabe. So it's been recorded. It's done exactly what we needed it to do. And it's in there and I can edit it if I want. So I can pull it along and I can get in there and I can do all the editing that I've shown in previous tutorials. Now, the first thing that I really ought to do is rename this track. So if I go to my project panel, you'll see that it's called track11.wav, which is no use to anybody. So immediately click on it and rename it something that means something to you. I'm not even sure that's spelt right, but hey, we'll go with that. So Jabberwocky, so now that I know it means something, and also what you really ought to do is put it in the correct folder, so I can get hold of that and drag it up and drop it in the audio bin, so that it's now in the right place with all the other bits and pieces that I have. Now that I've created that, what about adding narration to something that's already existing with sound? Well, I've got a couple of examples. Here we have the hoodie example, where there's lots of things going on and there is actually speech in this particular sequence, and we could add narration to this. However, if you're going to add narration, what you don't really want to do is have the other layers active so that they take your mind off what you're saying in your narration. So you write or prepare your narration in advance, and when it comes to recording it, you want to put it on audio channel 2. So what you might want to do is rename that to narration, and then you would solo the track so that the other tracks, particularly track 1, doesn't play and disturb you. Set it up for recording, make sure you've got the right device, and then enable recording in your sequence, and then we can create our narration while watching what's going on. I can't promise this is going to be any good whatsoever. It's not as if I've written narration for this. This is just an example, but let's see what we get. Everybody's very worried. He pays. Is he going to stab them? No, he's just going to pay money. He's a hoodie, but yet he actually does the right thing, and they are ashamed of themselves. I'll stop at that. And when I've finished, it's actually named after the track. So you'll see here it says narration 1, which is useful. So as I've renamed the track narration, my input is going to come in as narration, and therefore if I need to do something on audio 3, I might want to call it something different, or I might want to name it a guitar and then actually record my guitar direct into the computer. You've got so many options to do lots of different bits and pieces. So that's how you can record narration directly into Premiere Pro. Obviously you might make mistakes, and one of the ways of dealing with that is to create multiple tracks down here. And when you've made a mistake, rather than going in and editing it, what you could do is go back to the place where you've made the mistake, zoom in, open up the track so you can see the waveform, find out where you were good and go to where you finished, and then enable recording for the next track along, and continue your recording from that point, and just simply pull the error back. And then you can actually work with a couple of tracks. Every time you've made a mistake, you go in, record the next bit. When you've made a mistake, stop, pull it back, and then enable the previous track again to record from that point onwards. And that's the way that you can use multiple tracks to cover over multiple mistakes. And believe me, I always make multiple mistakes when I'm trying to do my recording. The last thing about recording is simply this: listen to yourself. When you are recording narration, listen to what you're saying, because you will find that you click, or you make a funny noise, or you mispronounce a word properly. Stop when you do that. Go back, enable the second track, and go forward from that point. You can always listen to it, you can always monitor it, you can always go back and work out how it sounded, and go on from there. Oh, and one final thing, you have sliders in here. Once you've recorded a bit of narration, so let's just play this narration back a second. Everybody's very worried. He pays. Is he going to stab them? No. You might feel that that's not loud enough. If you move this slider up, you're going to increase the volume that you record at, which is quite an important option. So if you are getting really high on these levels, you can pull it right down, and if you're not getting high enough, you can pull it right up. But what you don't want to do is ever peak into this area over here. If these go red, you have recorded too high a volume and it will distort. So are there any levels that people try and record at? There are no standards. However, I know a lot of people who always make their peaks at -6 and their standard at -12. However, I tend to work on the basis of making sure that my standard is at -6 and that I never peak into the red. But as I say, there are no standards, so you try and record however it works for you. Anyway, I hope you found this tutorial useful and that you'll be able to record audio into Premiere Pro to create your own narration. There's an awful lot to say about how to record audio, but maybe that's for another tutorial. My name's Andrew Davis, and thank you for watching.